Welcome to Fat and Ordinary. This is the prologue for the Better Late Than Never podcast. How y'all doing? My name's Jeff. I am your Fat and Ordinary host for the foreseeable future, however long the foreseeable future is. Well, I mean, if you couldn't see it, it wouldn't be foreseeable. So, the future, or maybe never. Who the hell knows? It's I'm just rambling at this point. I actually completely created this video yesterday, but because I read most of it, I read it like a computer. I wasn't very entertaining, had no inflection, no intonation, even though I knew what I was trying to say. I don't really think that would have translated all that well to other people have any idea what it was I was trying to say. So all I'm going to do is go through the text a little bit, just sort of peruse it occasionally as I go by. But the main point of making this video was to say this is something I've been wanting to do for years. I wanted to do it before I even knew what it was called, like my own radio show. When I was in uni a couple of years back, I thought about, we could do a 24-hour-a-day radio show where some of the students at the uni could get in and make the content that they wanted to make that wouldn't necessarily be able to be played on the radio, be it the music that I didn't like or about conversations that I didn't want to have. So people could have had their own shows, and all we needed to do was set up the equipment so that they could do that in an effective manner. That's what I wanted to do. That was a couple of years ago. But before that, I even thought about doing the same sort of thing because apparently I can speak. Apparently I know a fair bit about, I know a little bit about a lot. So they say a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. So maybe that's what the whole purpose of this is get in a bit of danger. This is where we start. So this is why I'm here. It's called Fat and Ordinary because that's how I feel about myself most of the time. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean physically true. As I look at myself and I am fat, and according to the doctors, I'm morbidly obese. And if that's not a defeating way of speaking to someone, if that's not a destructive way of speaking to someone, they're not going, yeah, you're a bit overweight, you can do something about that. No, morbidly obese. Okay. I'm going to go eat a cookie and drink a thick shake and eat a McDonald's burger. I actually just thought I'd add a thing to that. I've come back after the fact because, cheating, editing, whatever. I'm not saying that someone saying that I'm fat causes me to eat. It's about me, not about them. So someone says, oh, you're fat, you're overweight, you're going to die, you've got heart disease, whatever it is. I don't. But I'll impart a story at some point about a doctor being pissed off that I didn't have heart problems. But that's a different story. Food is comforting. Food makes you feel warm and it makes you feel full. So if you have any emptiness inside, if you were ever lacking anything or are lacking something in your life that doesn't, so you're not feeling fulfilled, food can fill that void for a very temporary period of time. And because it's temporary, then you need another fix of that thing. And it usually tends to be carbs and sugars and things like that, which are really not very healthy for you. And again, that's a whole completely different discussion. Okay, carbs in theory are food. The human body is incredibly adaptable. But if we're not then compensating for the different type of fuel, I mean, it's like Back to the Future. Back to the Future 3. So, for example, Back to the Future 3, the car gets a hole in its fuel tank and can't run on fuel. So they put whiskey. Now, you can build an engine to run on whiskey. It's very easy to do. You can actually build engines to run on almost anything that contains energy. I'm pretty sure I could build an engine tomorrow out of shit I've got lying around the house that would run on a cashew. Again, conversation for a different day. But in this film, they put whiskey in this engine and it blew the manifold off. Now, it couldn't actually do what they said it did, but it would burn a hole in a valve, burn a piston, break a rod. It would do some serious mechanical damage to that engine. Things are designed to run on a particular type of fuel. The human body is much more adaptable than an internal combustion engine and can run on many different types of fuel, but that doesn't mean that that is the ideal fuel for that thing. So I know I have an issue with comfort eating. And therefore, when things don't go the way that I want, food is comforting. Then, because you're really full, you feel crappy because of the greasy, horrible for you food that you've eaten. The only way that you can get more comfort is more food. It's a strange circular argument, but emotional things are often strange circular arguments. That's part of what we're going to be talking about. I haven't teed all of that up yet. I haven't got all my ducks in a row, but that's the main point of the exercise. But this video right now is to say, look, this is what I wanted to do for years. And instead of thinking about things, coalescing my ideas, coalescing my thoughts, making me understand how I was going to do things, what invariably I did, just based on the way I think, now whether it's genetic or whatever the reason that I think that way, instead of getting more coherent ideas, instead of going, oh, well, let's just look at equipment. Well, I need this piece of equipment, then get that piece of equipment and go, well, everybody's changed to a different piece of equipment. I don't want that piece of equipment. So I talk myself out of things probably much more rapidly than I talk myself into things. So, I mean, bad habits are much easier to maintain than good habits. I mean, there's other reasons that works, and even though neuroplasticity is a thing, it doesn't necessarily mean that if you paint a rubber band black that it's going to become an inner tube. So now I've got a bunch of stuff together. I've got all sorts of stuff put together. So let's just switch over to this thing for a second. So, I've got microphones for doing interviews. I've got a very inadequate USB hub so that I can plug a bunch of stuff into it. I've got multiple cameras. I've got this device here. I think it's called a launch pad, so that I can switch cameras and have some soundboard stuff going, but I haven't worked out how to make that work. I've got my H4n, which is an old, mostly broken device, but I can have 4 microphones going into that, so there can be 4 people having a conversation at the same time. But I also have a USB microphone, so in theory I can use this as an audio interface, have 4 people speaking into this, and then use that as well. There's some delay issues, but we can cross that bridge when we come to it. Then I also have a low camera and a high camera. That's not going to be the position that these cameras remain in, but while it's just me sitting at my desk with a very limited amount of space to do anything, that's the way I'm setting it up. There's enough room behind me at the moment. See, I've got a nice little, fold-out table there. I've got some chairs outside. We can even move out into the carport. We can even go out in the sun and do this. Most of this stuff has got long enough cables, or I can migrate outside. Biggest problem with the location that I have now, I live right near an airfield, so it's not giant jumbo jets taking off, but it is many, many light aircraft and choppers and all sorts of other stuff. And it seems that Polair, the police helicopter, flies around a huge amount of time looking for someone or something, and I have no idea what to think about that. So for years and years and years, I was going to do this. For years and years and years, I've been talking about making films. Since I was a little kid, I used to play these little scenarios out and build little sets and little props, and it wasn't a thing. We lived in the bush. We lived in a caravan for years. So I had a lot of my own company and not necessarily a lot of company of other children. And when I did have company of other children, because we moved so frequently, I never was able to maintain them as friends. So I found it much easier to just maintain a friendship with myself. I probably had a whole series of imaginary friends as well, and I know for a fact I had a lot of conversations with myself about very unimportant things. Well, they were important to me, but they're probably not important to anybody else. A short film festival came up a couple of years ago, and I went, oh, look, I'm going to do that. I have some stories that I've written. I've got a couple of characters, and look, in reality, I envisaged me as those characters, even though I don't really necessarily want to be in front of the camera because I don't like the way I look. I'm fat, I'm ordinary, my teeth are uneven, my face is uneven, I'm blind, so I've always got light shining in my eyes. I'm wearing a hat because my hair's scruffy, and I didn't really want it to be on film at the moment. I'm wearing these really, really bad headphones. It's just the padding on them that's bad. I think they got a bit hot, but they're very good quality headphones. I'm not going to leave them on because I don't really like the Cyberman look. But because my audio technique is a bit ordinary and I don't know all the filters and everything in the software that I'm using or the device that hopefully I'll be picking up in the next week or so, because I don't know how all of that stuff works at the moment, I'm using my headphones because that way I get to know whether you can hear me or not, what sort of noise we've got going on, what sort of things are happening in the background that you just can't hear without headphones. So I did this short film. While I was doing a short film, I made a series of videos along the way, like basically a vlogging of the experience, and that was fun. And I was doing that probably 6-8 weeks, something like that. Mightn't have been nightly, but it was quite frequently. And then after I did the short film, I was doing it for a very short period of time until I changed jobs and we moved location. But while I was working 60 hours a week, I was shooting videos on the way to work and on the way home from work. I was editing them overnight and adding music and GIFs or GIFs or whatever they are. Isn't GIF the stuff that you wash dishes with? Or anyway, GIFs and that sort of thing. But then I had an abundance of time. So my full-time job, or more than full-time job, stopped. We moved, and I thought, I've got this equipment, I've got some skills, some know-how, and I really enjoy doing it. I'll start making films. And we moved back to Brisbane in Queensland. And I thought, well, I can make some stuff along the river there and, a nice background and have a conversation with people about things. And this was still when I was thinking of Fat and Ordinary. So this was, what do people think when I take my shirt off compared to, say, when Thor takes his shirt off? Is it bias? Is it biology? Yeah. So, and the more I thought about it, the less deep I got, or the more deep into my neuroses that I got, or my fear and loathing, which is what 90% of it comes down to, is personal. I was going to say ineptitude, but that's not what I meant. Personal a fear of failure. So I often go to the place of, defeated perfectionist. I can't do it right, so I'm not even going to try. And I think a lot of people do that, and that's probably not necessarily a good thing to do. So there's a film called Legend of 1900. In the film Legend of 1900, there's a guy that's born on a boat, and he's a piano prodigy. And he makes beautiful music, other people's music, and his own music on this piano. He's presented with the opportunity to leave the ship, but this is the way I remember it, it might not be true. When he goes to leave the ship, all he sees is an infinite number of keys. So there's no middle C, there's nowhere to start, there's no top of the scale, bottom of the scale. There's no beginning and no end. He didn't think that he would ever be able to create anything or be anything without the limited space. Because with 88 keys on a piano, 61 keys on a Casio keyboard, which is what my setup is, at best, it's probably a waterlogged thing bought cheaply from the Vinnies, from a thrift shop, and half the keys don't even work anymore. That's what I'm trying to use here, 10-year-old potato. And then this thing here is a 15-year-old potato. It wasn't a potato when I started using it, but it's definitely a potato now. And this thing here that you're looking at it through, the webcam, which is really super low resolution, that thing there is that was $30 at an op shop. And I've got all these stupid ring lights floating about the place that I just bought really, really cheap every time I went to Kmart. They're not adequate, and I need to work on it. Part of the graininess of this image is just because there's not enough light for these tiny sensors in these cameras, but that's a different story. And now I've completely forgotten where I was going. Okay, so old matey, Tim Roth's character, who was called 1900, he wouldn't get off the ship because he just didn't see, with endless possibilities, where to begin, how to create music. But with the 88 keys on the keyboard, he saw potential. He could create the infinite works of man, the infinite musical works of man, with just that very limited, because there was a middle C, there was a place to go. They're all laid out in a logical manner. But as we all know, life is not logical, life is not fair, life is not laid out logically or cohesively or cooperatively. So I'm not saying life's bad. I'm not saying things are horrible. We make decisions based on the information that we have, but if you've got the whole universe of information at your disposal, it doesn't necessarily mean that that information is right for you, or that it's even right, or that it's even relevant. So many of us panic about what's going on in the world. What's relevant is we're all being told to think a particular thing and to feel a particular way. But it's not from us. It's not internal. It's not a spiritual thing or a creative thing. So what I'm thinking is this stuff here is, all this stuff here is my piano. Well, maybe not a piano. Like I said, it's probably my $30 thrift shop Casio keyboard. But anyway, so this is my piano. This is where I start. This is where I start to learn where middle C is. This is where, as a group together, we learn what scales are and what the hell a pregio is. We learn these things, and I'm happy to learn them with you, and I'm happy for you to say, hey, Jeff, you're a knob, you don't know what you're doing. I'm happy to hear that. Well, maybe I won't be happy to hear that, but if it's constructive criticism, even if it's constructive discriticism, I don't really care. Even insults can be constructive, because sometimes they're funny and I learn them, and then I can apply them to other people as I see fit. So this is the equivalent of what Jordan Peterson would say, cleaning my room. If nobody joins me on this journey, that's fine. This journey at the moment is for me. So very soon, it was supposed to be today, but I've had other things happening because, like I said, life's not necessarily logical. Life's not necessarily cohesive. And a lot of the time it's not particularly cooperative. So I'm going to advertise for a button pusher because I'm not particularly good at button pushing. And I can't really think and push all the buttons at the same time. It's very difficult to do more than one thing at once. And if I'm trying to have a conversation with someone, it's better and polite to engage in that conversation rather than be trying to do two things at once. And just once, at some point while I'm endeavoring on this, I want to say, hey, Jamie, can you bring that up for me? And if anyone's ever watched Joe Rogan, you'll understand that I just personally find that funny. Anyway, this is the end for the day, but all I really want to say is, as much as this isn't the final form that it will take, this is maybe it's not even the chrysalis. This is just the larval form of this channel, the larval form of my expression. All I can say is better late than never. Whether it's too little, too late or not, but still better late than never. And welcome to Fat and Ordinary. It's Back to the Future 2, 3. Which one did he go back in time? 3, Back to the Future. To be honest, I don't remember. How many Back to the Future films are there? Okay, it was 3.